welcome to another episode of Let's Make It. This is a Monday night, and what is today's date? It is the 21st of July. Yeah, and you can hear there, I'm here with Bob this week. We kind of missed last week because I was having a pretty bad storm that night. In fact, a little later in the show, we're going to show you a video of my hexacopter flying in from Hexacopter, and you're going to see that it actually picked up chairs and umbrellas and took them across my house to the other side. So it was a little bit of a bad storm we had, and I didn't want to chance it with the lights going browning out and everything of even doing a show. So it was kind of the last hour type of thing when the storm started, and I was like, I can't do it. So, and I actually lost power for a little while too, so it was probably good that I didn't do it. I did lose a computer though. I didn't know it till tonight. I went to go I fixed up Skype 1 for you, Bob, and tonight I could turn it on. It won't come on, so.
Uh-oh.
But I figured the video problem out, so I was ready to hook you up with Skype 1, and so I did lose that. But Bob has two things for you tonight, and then I'm going to close out with a hexacopter, a little bit of an update. But before we get started, I do want to talk about a couple of things that I've kind of gotten in, and Bob knows about a couple of these, so let's go over here. So this first one, I found this board, and I sent it to Bob, and I said, look what this thing can do. And I mean, it's huge. Look how much bigger it is than a typical Arduino. But it's very powerful. But I haven't plugged it in to say how powerful it is. It does run Linux or it runs Android. I think I'm going to try it with Android. But it has a LVDS on it. It's a gigabit port on the end. So it's a powerful machine. So hopefully it does what I wanted to do. I'm still looking for a good replacement for our CPUs for our controllers, because the Arduinos. Well, two things I want to try to figure out with the Arduino is hard to update remotely unless you have the IDE. So I want to get past that, where it's an easy upgrade process. That's one thing. But the Arduinos are not powerful enough to do multiple things. Sometimes they get stuck. But these type of boards are a lot more powerful. So this is, what's this board called, Bob? Remember? Riot board, something like that. Riot board. It's called a Riot board. So. Hopefully in the next couple weeks I get a chance to play with this, because I'm excited about playing with this. And then last week I showed you this. This is what's WDRT. It's in a router. They're very powerful chips, and all the networking is built onto them. And they have GPIO. But I also got the development board in, which makes it a lot easier to work with. So I'm still playing with that. That one actually I have stuff loaded on it. And I'm not quite sure it's going to do exactly what I want, but it's actually pretty powerful considering how small it is. And then I'm still recording the videos for the making of the hexacopters, but one of the things you'll notice in the video is I complain about the radio that I got. It's made in China, so everything's backwards. So negatives on the right, positives on the left. It's just bizarre as far as a radio goes. But people have hacked it, and this board is a hacking board. You basically stick it on top of the CPU, and you see these spring pins right here. They go on positions on top of that board, so there's no soldering. You basically screw it directly onto that CPU, and this is then a programmer, USB programmer, and people have code for it. So it's open. It makes the whole radio open source. So I'm going to do a video of installing that. I'm still getting an LCD backlight that I haven't gotten yet before I install this, but that'll be in the video coming up with the quadcopters. That video is getting quite long, but I do have the quadcopters up and running. So. Well, I have one of them up and running, and up and crashing, as I should say, also as well, as you'll see in the video later on.
That's like a good crash to brighten your day.
Yeah. I was a little worried when it first happened, because I didn't know how bad it was. And it looked kind of bad because some things fall off of it to keep it from breaking. But it really only broke one blade, and I put it back down and put in a new blade on it. And I did super glue the struts a little bit because one of them cracked a little, just to be safe. But for all in all, considering it fell from like probably 20 feet on the sky, it survived pretty well.
That's pretty good.
Yeah. All right. So Bob has a list of things tonight. Two things, right? And you're going to do which one first?
Either one.
You
Which
pick.
one? TVOut first?
Yeah, go ahead and do TVOut. So we've updated on TVOut.
All right. Let me switch to my desktop. All right, so what we're looking at here's the show from the TVOut episode we did a couple weeks ago, and we got this comment. And I read this and I wondered, okay, well, did I make a mistake? And after spending the better part of a full day looking at this and playing with it and testing it, I found that that yes, indeed, I did make a mistake in one sense. I blamed the library for doing something it wasn't doing, and then found that the library was doing something that was creating the problem that I was having. So what we talked about in the episode is that there was too much. I was using too much of the flash memory when I was uploading the sketch. So I ended up moving to a Mega because it's got so much more flash room, and I blamed it on the resolution of the screen resolution that I was using. Well, it turns out that was actually wrong. The resolution of the screen is actually going to RAM. But instead of using bytes, it actually uses bits. So if you'll forgive my calculation, I didn't do this ahead of time. Standard resolution is 120 by 96, which gives you 11,520, and that would be in bits, which means if you divide that by 8, it's going to use 1440 of the 2,000 bytes that are available on an Uno. So he is correct when he says that the memory was not running out because of the resolution of the screen. What I did find is that this library uses progmem, which is a keyword for the compiler. And without going into the long technical discussion, essentially what this does is that it puts the things that would normally go into SRAM, it puts them into flash memory. It makes them part of the sketch. So it makes the sketch bigger. And what I finally figured out was I was using so much of the library, and I was cramming so many things into what I was trying to put on the Uno, that my sketch was too big. But it was because of the this library, not because of the SRAM. So in one sense, he's right, but I was still having problems with the Uno. So if I had lowered the resolution, I could have saved a little room in the RAM, and if I had tried to do fewer things in the library, or with the library on the Uno, then I would have saved the flash memory. So but he does make a good comment, and he's right. I wasn't it wasn't quite right what I said a couple weeks ago with this. So I was having the problem, but just not for the reason that we had talked about during the show. So hopefully that corrects the misunderstanding, and I'll add a comment to the page later.
Yeah, and about that, there's the whole comment thing out on the page. That's great to go out there and comment on it. We do get notified. We get a lot of spam out there, so we don't allow the spam through. People trying to sell you a Viagra and things like that. So it may take us a little while to say yes. It doesn't show up immediately, but if you comment out there, it just comes in our email. And it's a quick thing to do. I read the comment, and then if it's okay, I say accept it, and it shows up. There's not like I have to go through and do a lot of work or anything. But if you do it in the middle of the night when I'm sleeping, it won't show up till the next morning. Just be aware of that.
Well, it is a good comment. So, and I'm glad he corrected it, and I did learn a great deal about how the memory how the memory works, and switching back and forth between flash and RAM, and
right,
and where you can put things. And
did you write on utilities? Check that while you were doing it. Use some of the memory check routines.
I didn't write one. I found one on a playground, and yes, I did actually find one, and that's how I could verify exactly how many bytes were being added by the library.
Yeah, I've used those tools. It's very helpful when you're running out of memory to figure out how you're using memory. It's amazing how fast that little bit of memory goes away.
Yeah, and with the TVOut, each pixel does have to have 1 bit, so it does chew up memory pretty quickly and with an Uno only having 2,000 bytes,
Right.
pretty easy to use it up.
Yeah.
So, and he is right. If you lowered the resolution, then you'd have more RAM available for other things.
Right.
But I was trying to push push as much as I could, get as much onto the Uno as possible. And then, of course, I ran into the problem with trying to, that 25 key keypad that I have needs 10 I/O pins. So.
Oh yeah, that goes quick.
Yeah. So, and that's a whole different problem trying to use that with an Uno. So.
Right.
So in one way, he's absolutely right, and in another way, it wasn't, an Uno wasn't going to work for me with what I was trying to do.
Right.
But good comment. Good comment.
All right. So for the next thing, you got to kind of guide me what you want to do first.
Well, let's. The next thing is a follow-up on the GPS. I have gotten a lot of emails trying to debug people's problems. Is it the GPS that has a problem? Is it the Arduino that's got a problem? Is it hardware physically not set up correctly? So I ended up doing the video and the PowerPoint. I guess let's do the video first.
All right. Is there audio in the video, or are you going to walk through it yourself?
There is audio with the video, although there was a bit of wind that day.
All right.
But there is audio with it, and essentially this is what I'm walking through is very quickly the UCenter software that I actually got from the company that built the GPS. They were the ones that sent me this originally. And this is a very quick demo on how to set up the Arduino, how to get it working, and a very quick demo on the UCenter software.
All right, so you ready to go? I think we can talk over it too if we need to. I think I just fixed that, so we could do that if we want.
Oh, okay.
You ready to go?
Sure.
All right.
Hello everyone. As you can tell, it's not Monday night. It's actually Friday afternoon before the show, and I'm not in my office. Instead, I am at Boy Scout Hill at White Rock Lake here in Dallas. Here's a view of the lake. It's a little windy here, but for a July day, it is absolutely wonderful. Here it is. It's coming up on noon right now, and I don't even think it's 90 degrees yet. So it's a beautiful day to be outside and demoing the GPS that we worked on a few weeks ago. I've had lots of questions about how to get it to work, and lots of people have had trouble, so I've sent links to some software that will help you debug the GPS and see if it's in your code, or if it's actually the GPS or your antenna or something else that's wrong. So tonight's segment that we're recording right now is about that software. So first things first, let's look at the GPS, and here's the GPS that we used a few weeks ago. As you can tell, I've taken the jumper pins out of it, so it is connected to, essentially, the GPS is not connected to the Arduino. So first thing you do is we're going to load a blank sketch on it, and this is all you need. This is all the code that you need, and we will upload that. I do have it plugged in already. Time to load. All right, now it's done loading. So we're going to unplug it, and I'm going to plug in the jumpers for this, because you do need to pin with the blank sketch. Essentially what you're doing is you're just allowing the serial connection to pass through the Arduino into your software that we're going to look at. And hopefully you can see the jumper pins are now set. Let me get rid of that. And with that, we will plug the Arduino back in. And unfortunately, this software that we're using only works on Windows. So this is my Windows 7 that I have loaded on my MacBook Pro that I have a Lake. U-Center software. All right. I am using, I believe, 8.1? Yes, 8.1. And when I looked the other day, there is an 8.11 out now. Got it installed, and now I'm going to select, because I'm using Parallels with Windows 7 on my MacBook, I've got to turn it on, and it should come up. Yep, came up COM3, and you see that nothing's happening. Well, the answer is actually quite simple. The problem is that 9 times out of 10 the BOG. So if we select 38400, voila. The GPS is now reading satellites and figuring out where it's at. And it is just that quick to figure that in this case the GPS and the antenna that I'm using perfectly, and you can tell that it has already figured out that I am here in Dallas, Texas, already picking up. It's getting a good signal, a little intermittently from 6 of them, and 4 more it's starting to read. It has figured out that it's a few minutes after 5 UTC, which is correct because it's a little afternoon here in Dallas, so 5-hour difference is correct for Central Time, and that's it. It is just that easy to get the GPS working.
And I think it's the third. We'll just look at the connections. Well, here's the common problems.
Right, and I can actually speak to some of these common problems with in the last week for me, because I asked you for help.
Right, yeah. And, of course, your problem was one that isn't on this list because it was...
Yeah, I'll go over that one, because I basically did what he just did, create a blank sketch, and it worked. So I knew that the GPS, my first thought was, because the GPS for the plug was kind of short, I thought maybe it was too short for it to make connection. So then I did what he just did, and I got data immediately. So I knew the problem wasn't the GPS, it was something that I was doing. So, but the 38.4 thing got me it for a little bit with even the software, because I didn't know, because somewhere I read it was either 48 or something else, 4800 or something else, and I tried 4800 and everyone as high as 38.4. So I think I went to 115 or something, and I skipped 38.4 for a while.
Well, 38.4 is kind of an odd rate, but
yeah.
That's all right, I guess.
So here's the software serial. You see that on the screen there?
Yeah, now this is, and that code, that little snippet of code right there is right out of the code that that we demoed before. And that's the code and the physical pin 2 and 3 that I'm using.
All right, and then
the next slide is the way it looks with pins 1 and 2 connected for the U-Center software.
Right. So at that point, you with the blank sketch in there, you're not doing anything. You're just converting USB to serial, and you're passing it on to the GPS at that point.
It's just passing through. So when I uploaded the blank sketch, those 2 pins, they have to be off. Otherwise, you'll be trying to communicate from your computer to the GPS, which obviously doesn't work. So,
right. So the problem that he helped me figure out and was, and this may be something where I got the software serial library from, but the software serial library had a 64-byte array limit on the buffer. So I wasn't getting, basically I was running the Johnny GPS library and never getting anything. I just got back blanks. So I started debugging that library and figuring out I was getting data back, but I was never getting the asterisk and the checksum. It ended up being that it was being cut off. The first line was being cut off, and then it would give up after that. So I increased that buffer to 4 times its size, 256, and then I started getting all the data, and then it just started working immediately. So that's something that if you get at the tiny GPS software or library and it's not working for you, just go into the software serial, increase the buffer size in the software serial, and that's all it did for me. It took me a while to figure it out. Lots of debugging, seeing I was getting data, but then I realized I wasn't getting a checksum, a valid checksum, so it would just throw it away at that point.
Yeah, and it's funny because
your software serial works fine.
Yeah, my software serial worked fine. I haven't had that problem.
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. Maybe I got a version somewhere that has a smaller buffer in it, or maybe my Uno's not working properly or something. I don't know. But that definitely fixed my problem out.
I had the problem where my tiny GPS, there's, the last time I looked, there were 12 or 13 different releases of it.
And I probably got an old release of it or something.
I remember when I first started working with that GPS, the library that I had some bugs in it. So those have probably been fixed by now. Okay.
Yeah, that's something to look for if you're having, my tiny GPS software would not work. That's why I thought it was broken. I was asking you about it because I couldn't figure what was going on. Then when I realized it's functioning fine on the PC, then I realized it's something I was doing. So.
Right. And that's the reason why I did that little video is that because when you have multiple systems all in play at once, you've got to isolate and figure out, okay, what's working and what's not. And the first thing to do is always, is the GPS working?
Right.
Because I've had, there's been some people that the GPS was actually working. It was a bad antenna.
Which is what I thought my problem was, because I was sitting there thinking, like, well, maybe it's taking a while to come up. Then I would let it go for 15 minutes and wasn't getting anything. And I'm like, okay, and it's not. So I looked off the plug and the little wire, and it was kind of short. And I'm like, well, it might not be touching. It's close. And obviously it is touching just fine. So.
And that's why I went outside, is because I could, with the antenna that I've been using, I get a connection immediately when I'm outside.
I can stick it in my window and get one within a couple seconds. Typically within 2 or 3 seconds, I'm getting something back.
Well, it's funny, my office is in a 3-story building, and I'm at least 30 or 40 feet from the nearest window, and it takes a couple hours, but eventually the GPS will figure out where it's at.
That's funny. When Sally's passed over a certain direction or something like that, it gets enough data to figure out where it's at.
Just enough data, yeah. And I was picking up, in that demo, we were picking up 10 satellites off and on.
Yeah.
But you only need 3 to triangulate your report.
Oh, you need 4 to get altitude, right? 3 is gets X, Y, and 4 gets you the Z.
Yep. So, but for me, 3 gives me
where you're sitting at. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I don't need to know my altitude. I'm not a plane.
Yeah, right.
I'm on the ground, so I'm okay.
The other thing I noticed is that software seems like it'll pick up other types of satellites. There's more than just the U.S.-based GPS systems now. There's the GLN-OS, and apparently it can do that as well.
Yeah, I haven't studied that, but from what I've been told from people, elsewhere around the world, is that it is picking up other satellites.
Yeah, that's becoming a more common thing now. The GLONASS or whatever they call that satellite system. So, all right. So the next thing, actually, is just the last. We're gonna end with a video. It's a little bit long, but if you like watching things fly, and it's done on the outside of my house, so you'll see what the storm damage was when you're seeing that too. But it ends in a crash, and it actually, I want to say up front, it has a few other issues I'm trying to work out, which are the speed controllers. One of them is like when it gets the low, it just stops. It'll be in midair, and there's one prop sitting still. That's what I was trying to figure out. And then I tried taking it off. It caught some wind with one prop off, and it flew into my screened-in porch. It actually hit the soffit, broke a blade, fell down, and that's all the damage was done to it. The landing gear is designed to fall apart if it's hard crash, so it did. I put it back together, and I did super glue a piece to it just to make sure it didn't crack anymore where it cracked. But besides that, it's pretty. It does pretty well. So I'm doing a whole series of videos on making these. This is the first one. This one is using, for the most part, off-the-shelf pieces. It's using a DJI NASA controller. Has a DJI video broadcast system in it, but the motors are not DJI. They're open source. The speed controllers are open source. The frame costs like $30, so it's open source. So it's all low cost stuff, with the exception of the controllers. I'm building some more that are a lot lower cost even than this, but this is the first one, and it's actually been a little bit of an experience because as you build things like this that are like kind of open source, you find things that don't work together real well. And I've actually gone ahead and removed the original speed controllers. Actually had one of them catch on fire, smoked, made a big mess. Big spark, so I went to larger ones, and the other ones I'm going to use for the smaller motors. And one of the other ones, I had 6 of them. One of them burnt up, so I have another quadcopter that's using 750 milliamp motors versus the 1 kiloamp, I guess they're 1 amp kilovolts, 1,000 kilovolts motors, and I just went to 30 amp speed controllers. But we're going to go and play the video, and that'll be the last thing we really do in the show. We'll come back and talk a little bit afterwards and stuff like that as well. But hopefully this video plays.
Battery dead.
did. I don't understand. Let's see what's happening. Oh, I lost the prop. I don't know why I lost the prop. The show. So a couple of things. A couple of other shows we've been doing live call-ins now. So we have a call-in number. I don't know if anybody would be interested in doing that. I mean, it's running right now. I'm just not even I'm not looking at to see who's calling in. But if that'd be something that interests people to call in and talk to us live during the show, that'd be kind of interesting if you want me to do that. And it takes me 2 minutes to set it up, and I just got to watch it. So I'm not in the habit of watching it except for that one show. But definitely willing to do it. It's there. It's always running, so it's not like it's any extra work other than the 2 minutes to get it set up in front of me. So let us know if you want to try that. Anytime I don't know, Bob, what do you think about that?
I'm game.
I mean, there's no video. It's all audio. It's over the phone, so.
Yeah, sometimes it's when somebody throws a part at you, you got to go look up the data sheet real quick. So. Yeah. Kind of stumble for a minute before.
But I'm thinking if they're having problems with some particular thing on an Arduino, they could call in and maybe ask a question about it or something like that. Yeah. That's kind of how we're using on the other shows. Is it's more of we'll help you out if you're having questions or problems or things like that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I'm just throwing it out there. Like I say, I got it all set up ready to go, and any show can use it. So we can look at that. One thing I should have mentioned at the beginning of the show is I actually got a very interesting email from one of our viewers. Jim says he's mic shy, video shy. That's probably a sign of a true geek behind the keyboard. I got an email, and I first read it. I thought it had to be wrong because I got it. It was from a 13-year-old, one of our viewers, who has been. What is it when you get a press pass? He's been. I forget what you call that, but basically, he's allowed to go and set up cameras at launches for the Air Force. And he's trying to build a timer controller to control the camera because he has to go like a day before. He has to sit there for a while because you can't be around the launch pad within a certain period of time before the launch. So he's trying to figure out how to get everything timed so that he's also listening. So he took a piezo sensor, and if he hears loud noises, he starts taking pictures. So he wants to set a video camera up now to start it and stop it. So I'm just impressed that there's a 13-year-old out there working on Arduino projects like this.
Yeah, that is impressive. So he wants to use an Arduino to time the camera.
Yeah, so I think part of the thing is he wants to know, because he has to know how long it's sitting up there. So he started originally asking about real-time controllers. And I mentioned that the GPS was another option for him because it has time on it and it's easy to interface with. Versus the RTCs they're typically, I2C controlled or things like that, and they're, a little bit more difficult. Let me see if I have his email here in front of me. I meant to bring it up earlier and I totally forgot.
Okay, I found it.
Yeah, he sent it to the Let's Make It.
Cameras are triggered by sound.
Right, so he has that part working, I think. And now he's trying to get the video camera part to work with real-time controllers. So anyways, I was impressed. When he said 13 years old, I was like, that's impressive.
That's my kind of kid.
Yeah. a true geek at heart there. In fact, that he's even been acknowledged by as basically press by the Air Force is impressive in itself. I didn't really ask in details about how he became, sort of, or I forget what they call that when you have a press rights and stuff.
Credentials.
It's press credentials, but there's a process that you go through, and I can't remember what it is. But he says it in his first email. But anyways, I thought that was very, very impressive. Okay, so Jim's asking why not RTC, and there's not a reason why not RTC at all. It just they're a little bit, or typically, they're typically a little more complicated. I guess it was the reason I was thinking, because they're I2C based, and the GPSs are serial based. Real easy to read. Tiny GPS could just tell you what time it was.
Yeah, you're right. The using the real-time clock is a little more cumbersome.
Yeah.
And GPS is much more convenient and easier to get running.
The other thing about RTC is if it gets set wrong by accident somehow, it never recovers, where GPS is going to give you the time that it is right now, every second. That was my only thought behind it. There was no setting it up. You just pretty much set it down and set time on it.
Yeah, and it's easy to keep your time perfect.
Right.
Yes, right.
Right, within milliseconds, where it takes a little, to process it. But, so yeah, he's also talking about days running on batteries. So there's some concern there too. I sent him some links about it going to sleep, and I read some of the articles about interrupts for waking it up and things like that. So there's a couple of things you can do. He's pretty much aware of the battery draw for LEDs, because he said about it needs a Arduino that doesn't have LEDs, and so he's pretty well aware of the battery draw of that kind of stuff too. So he's thought it out pretty well.
Yeah, and I'd have to look up what the draw on a GPS is, but I know you can put GPSs to sleep as well.
That's what I would do. I'd put it to sleep and then put the whole thing to sleep for like a minute, and then bring in. Well, you can there's a couple ways you could do it. You could leave the GPS sleep longer, actually. Once an hour, check it.
Right.
And just count on the local timer to keep it accurate. And maybe if you get within a certain window, you start being a little more active with it, checking it more often. Yeah, so there's a bunch of things there. I mean, it's very interesting. I'd like to see some videos, some pictures of it when he's done with it.
Yeah, and that would help with his power management, which if he's got battery, he's going to have to worry about that. So.
Right. I mean, I saw some articles there about running on 4 AA's for a year on Arduino and how you can do it. So there's ways you can do it.
A year on AA batteries.
4 AA's. Yeah. So there's good actual battery management articles if you just search for battery management, Arduino battery management, or power management. There's good articles on different ways people are trying to do it. So I never really thought about that too much until he started asking me questions about it. I'm like, how do you do that? Because I've read where you can put it to sleep, but then you got to wake it up with something. So there's a whole articles on how to do that as well.
Yeah, the only time I've ever used a battery with an Arduino is 9 volts with the GPS, and that was just a 20-minute run around the block,
right,
to see if it was going to work. And then I got a barrel connector from the local electronics store and plugged it into the 5-volt adapter in the car. So
yeah, so you have power all the time. Yeah.
I had power all the time, so it's never been an issue for me.
Right.
But yeah, just by itself, if it's sitting there, an Arduino isn't going to draw a lot of current.
So Jim wants to know if you went for a swim while you're or a boat ride at the lake.
No, I did not. Not that time.
You can't swim in that lake, can you? Or it's not recommended?
I wouldn't go out there.
And even the first lake where you were with the airplane just flying over you, that's another one I wouldn't really want to get in either.
Yeah, I didn't talk about that we were, Jim, we were talking about this before the show. I actually started off recording at Bachman Lake, which is right in the flight path for Love Field in Dallas. And after a couple takes of trying to get that video working, I ended up chewing up the battery on my laptop, so I had to come home, charge my battery back up, and then I decided I wasn't going to repeat Bachman Lake, so I went over to White Rock, and I think it was the third or fourth take before I finally got that.
And the Love Field is, for the most part, Southwest Plains.
Yeah.
So all those planes were probably Southwest or some private type things, company, corporate type
Southwest
stuff.
Private is the bulk of their, but I guess Delta does fly 1 or 2 flights out of there.
Oh, really?
And is supposed to be getting a couple gates.
Thought they weren't supposed to do that anymore with DFW and the Wright Amendment.
Wright Amendment is going away.
Oh, wow.
So yes, you're going to see more from Southwest in the future. So
yeah, that means you can fly directly into Dallas without going through a local state or Texas.
That hopefully so. So
that'd be nice.
Yeah, and not going to DFW.
Right.
Although DFW is a good airport, but gosh, it's big.
Yeah. If you have to go between terminals, it takes you forever.
It's a little better now that they've got the new, Skytram.
Oh, really? I haven't been through Dallas Fort Worth in a while.
Yeah, they've got a new train system between the terminals that's a lot better than the old system. So
Jim's saying you could have used my ADSB project. All right, so we'll go ahead and we'll call it a show.
All right.
Failures and everything.
Yep, that's right.
I have to figure out why the videos aren't playing, because it still says it's playing the one video, and it's not. It's just sitting there.
Well, yeah, we got a few things to figure out.
Yeah, well, that's what happens with software. So the video will be in the final version. All right. Well, I just want to remind everybody, you can get us on YouTube, or you can download us on any of the podcast directories. You can watch us on the Roku. We're actually working on making the Roku live, so you can watch everything live on the Roku itself. That's a project I'm working on right now, using some other software that resides up in the cloud, but still a little ways to go on that. But tell your friends. It's always helpful to spread the word around and get more people to watch. Our downloads have been going really good, so I'd like to get more people in the live chat and make it a little more interactive. We have our regulars in there, and we definitely appreciate that. But
and send emails, because you answer it, and the GPS segment was because of questions from people were asking. So
right, and the comments, like I said, on the website, I don't know, do you get copies of the comments, or do I just have to forward them to you? I can't remember if
You forwarded those.
Okay. Yeah, I probably should start forwarding everything to you. I mean, I won't forward you the junk, obviously, but the good stuff I'll forward to you. Those comments come in. Because we do get notified right away when that happens, because I have to approve them. And like I said, it's one click. I approve or delete, depending what it is.
Yeah, and the spam and the Viagra and the porn, we don't need any of that.
Yeah, I haven't gotten any porn, but I've gotten, and I got the typical thing like, hey, I like your show, or like this, check out my blog type thing, for the link backs. Because people don't realize it doesn't work anymore. That's actually a negative thing to do that. But, we still get it. But anyways, I want to thank everybody for the show. There will be no show next Monday. I'm actually traveling next Monday, and we'll be back the following Monday. So...
Sounds good.
All right. We'll see everybody in 2 weeks.
Good night.
Night. For show notes for this show, contacts, and more, go to the TechZen.tv website, where you can get show notes for all of our shows. We love to hear from our viewers and listeners. We have an email, a Twitter, and a phone number where you can contact us for each show. For details, visit the TechZen.tv website and get the show details. You can also make a video and upload it somewhere like YouTube or Vimeo, and then just send us a link. You never know, you may see your video in a future show. You can get all of our shows delivered automatically to your favorite device by going to your favorite podcast website like iTunes and subscribing. Each of our shows also has a YouTube channel you can subscribe to get regular updates. Our shows are also available on most internet radio networks like Stitcher and TuneIn Radio. You can also watch and listen to our shows on Xbox, TiVo, and Roku. You can even find us on your Zune.